mode. And this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to minimize me because I don't need to look at myself. And I will say, hello, everybody. Thank you for the West Coasters for getting up early and being Saturday teachers. For all of you guys that have been going strong since well, 6 a.m. my time, I guess 9 a.m. your time. Welcome, East Coasters. Oh, I can't find a nice place to hide that. Okay, so my name's Scott Petrie. I'm a high school history teacher in Los Angeles, and I'm here to talk to you today about a product that I have been experimenting with in my class. It's called Arist, A-R-I-S-T, and it's a platform for creating text message classes. These are classes that get delivered to your students one text per day at a time that they pick. And I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm a California history teacher, social studies teacher. And I'll remind you, if you haven't gotten enough Zoom professional development, the California Council for Social Studies is virtual too this year. So you can sign up and you can also see right here, every time I underline something, that means there's a link you can click on and you can go to that website and explore those resources. So oh, I might not have said this, and I should put this in the chat, but these slides are available for you to use and steal, repurpose, make a copy of. I'm going to put the bit.ly in the chat so you all have access. Oh, come on, you can work for me. There we go. Okay, so there you go. You can all jump into the deck. All right, just a little background, recent study that I saw from my friend John Carippo, who knows I like to read books in my history class. This reading study, which was really geared towards elementary social studies teaching in the elementary grades, social studies instruction and reading comprehension from our friends at the Fordham Institute. They found that an extra 30 minutes of reading social studies nonfiction text is an extra 15 points, 15 standard deviations of reading comprehension. And compared to our friends in ELA, where they consistently get double blocked and social studies consistently is marginalized in the elementary school years, this study certainly makes us all think, well, what if we taught more reading and social studies? Would we get better bang for our buck when it comes to reading comprehension and reading improvement? And again, you can click here to read the whole study, see if it's worthy of your time or junk science. Another stat I like to throw out there for my high school students who are getting ready for college is that 55% of a student's academic vocabulary comes from the 4 disciplines of the social studies. That's from our friend Robert Marzano. So every time my principal talks about wanting to increase literacy rates, wanting to increase content knowledge, you've really got to go back to the basics and focus on social studies. Reading in social studies teaches more academic vocabulary than any other subject. So, and with that in mind, I'm going to just kind of introduce this theory of action for this project. I taught my students about what's called the spacing effect. And basically one of the postulates in that says that after 10 days of basic spaced repetition of facts and narrative, learners remember 90% of their given information. And that's perfect for a text messaging course because you only have about 1,200 characters per day. So you can say, hey, today we are talking about this. Tomorrow we're going to talk about that. Yesterday we talked about this. Do you remember? And you're kind of prompting them to engage in the topic, engage in the academic vocabulary. So I want to warn you, this is an unproven technology. This is a startup company, Arist, started by three college students, actually one of them, Maxine Anderson, from Florida, but they all met at, I think, Babson College and formed this company. And right now I know Max is on a leave of absence, trying to grow the company. And this always reminds me of an earlier product I used when I first flipped my classroom in like 2012. I used this company called Zaption, and they were pioneers in helping teachers embed questions, interactive tech questions into their video lectures. And I went crazy and I made 35 flipped videos that year. And then the next year, Zaption went out of business and left the K-12 market. So I put that out there as a warning. If you're here, you're a text enthusiast, you're a tech enthusiast, you're a visionary, you're an early adopter, you know, sometimes these things work and sometimes they go away. So this is what a text message course looks like. I created one for my students last spring when we went on to distance learning. It was about the Cold War. It was a 7-day course on the Cold War. And the students, when they opt into the course on their phone, they select the time that they get the text message. And that's kind of interesting because I had a lot of students, and I still do, that stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning. And I'm surprised at when they're doing their homework and turning stuff in. Typically, the text starts off with a picture or a quote to kind of get you into the content. And then you have 1,200 characters, which is about 160, 180 words, which is problematic if you have your doctorate because, you know, in doctoral school, they teach you it takes 500 words to say hi. And nothing is worth saying unless it can be dragged out for 20 pages. So this is really the antithesis of that, where you have to just say, this is the basic bare bones information I need you to know. So the students get the text, and the research from Arist shows that 90% of students engage in that text within 3 minutes of receiving it. And so also included in the platform is you get to ask 4 types of questions: a short answer question, a multiple choice question, longer, like maybe a paragraph, or a poll question. And so the nice thing is when the students answer the question, you can push them additional content. And I like to use the Bitly service so that I can wrap those long YouTube URLs or other documents I've given them through Google Docs. I can just wrap it up real quick with as minimal characters as possible. So, and the whole idea of this is that you keep the course light and conversational and really fun and entertaining is what you're going for. I do want to give like a little bit of background information. In Los Angeles, where I teach, John Rogers from UCLA did a study last fall, and he found that due to the pandemic, fewer students are able to keep up with the amount of work in their assigned classes. In 43% of our schools, more than a quarter of students were not able to keep up with the assignments during remote instruction. And nearly half of these principals, of a sample of 344 LAUSD principals, reported that they had difficulty maintaining contact with at least 10% of their students. And in some cases, these principals were not able to establish any contact with part of their student body. And we know from research that this happens in high poverty schools much more than in low poverty schools. And so what I kind of glommed onto is a lot of my students that were struggling with internet, they're using a neighbor's internet, it's not always reliable, they can't remember their passwords to the LMS or all the various apps that teachers are using. When you send the text message to their phone, it's much easier for them to get the information. In fact, it's what the founders of Arist called frictionless information. So this is kind of what the responses look like to the questions you get. It's not quite as robust as your LMS, and it can be cumbersome when it comes to grading purposes. But again, the feedback from students is really, really high. So I'm just going to briefly show you what it looks like, or what it looked like, because I had my 10th grade students all create 7-day courses. And I gave them a list of these 6 topics that I'm supposed to cover for my California Social Studies standards. And I wrote up this lesson plan. Now, I will say, if you go to the Arist page, homepage, and you try and start up, you'll be shocked by how expensive their product is. And that's to kind of remind you that they don't really have a K-12 product yet. Most of their product is geared towards corporate learning, because they need to make money in order to survive. So you can sign up as a starter or creator account, and then you get 10 courses for free. So I showed people how to, and the other thing is, when you're signing up high school students, if you're signing up middle school students to do this, you have to use this link right here that's highlighted in yellow. Because this is the link that you can bypass the credit card information in. And thank goodness my high school students do not have credit cards yet. Knock on wood. They keep trying to get them younger and younger. Let's hook them. But my students just went here to register for their starter account, and that's how they created their content. So like I said, I gave them topics, and then I gave them a few days to research and write their topics. And so I gave them this little template, which is included in this presentation later. And they could write up their content. They could show me their sources, and I can kind of coach them through by lightly editing some of their work. The big thing is, you want to make sure that all these numbers over here on the left-hand side, that is your character count. And you want to make sure that students are keeping within their character count. Otherwise, they have to really do a lot of last-minute editing in the Arist platform, because the platform simply won't take more than 1,200 characters. So this part required a lot of conferencing, a lot of small class instruction about how to show them how to focus on just the facts and make it conversational and make it light and entertaining. And what my students find is, the earlier they turn in their content, the more focus I give them, the more feedback they get from me. So another activity I like to do, this is just a simple Venn diagram, but students detail what the Wikipedia says about their topic, and then they compare it to what Encyclopedia Britannica says about their topic. And I tell them the difference is that Encyclopedia Britannica hires professional editors to vet their sources and see what's going on. But I want my students to look at both of these sources and see if there are significant differences between them. And this is kind of how I teach the beginning of fact checking in my class. So 2 tools I suggest for them to use to make their writing succinct and short is the Hemingway app and rewordify.com. Rewordify shows them in which words you can simplify, and the Hemingway app color codes which sentences are very hard to read and warns them that, hey, you might want to split these up here. These are both free online apps, and I show them what it looks like to simplify some text. So this is 170 words that are written at the 11th grade level from a professional historian who contributed to a PBS article on the Red Summer of 1919. And then this is my simplified version that I rewrote at the 6th grade level for the text message course. And so a lot of direct instruction is helpful here, because our students are worried about plagiarism, they're worried about cutting and pasting, but I'm reminding them that they're revealing their sources in the text class, so they're allowed to cut and paste and paraphrase, and more importantly, simplify. What are the big facts we need to focus on? So I also like to build in some executive function scaffolds and ask my students about their planning process. You know, how much time have you spent on this? How much time do you still need to spend on this? And I find that in a time where students are disengaging from distance learning, when they're doing meaningful projects like creating their own classes or their own text message courses that their classmates will be taking, my students really dove in and spent a significant amount of time reading and writing about the subject. The student on the top spent 3 to 5 hours writing up this script, a couple hours on the research, and they think it's only going to take them 30 minutes to put everything into Arist. The bottom student, says, this took time, but it's really fun and informational. And how often do you get that in your high school history class? So there was a lot of social capital in this project, and my students really enjoyed doing these text message classes. Here, I'm going to give you a link. This is a course that I created that you can sign up for and take for free. It's a 7-day course on the Cold War that introduces them to a few people and places and events from the Cold War. And then it culminates with them writing their own sort of Hamilton-esque song about the Cold War. And so this would give you an idea of what it looks like in the Arist platform. Here are some of the testimonials from students who took the course last spring. And, my theory here, my hypothesis is that these text message courses, if your classes are suffering from dropout and you have a significant number of D's and F's that you usually don't have in your face-to-face instruction, these micro courses, these text message courses might be a way to hook those students and re-engage them in learning. It reminds them that they have to go to your LMS and do some work in your regular class. It's a good way to sort of bring the focus back to the topic at hand. And, the big learning thing for me was I'm a 53-year-old man and I have a gigantic 75-inch television. I do not ever look at videos on my phone. But if you're 16 years old and you're looking to escape from your parents and privacy, uh, then you watch everything on your phone. And I see kids that they're watching full-length movies on Netflix on their phones. They swap YouTube videos all over the place. Teenagers are on their phones for about 7 hours a day, and the tweens aren't far behind them. I have a 13-year-old. The average 13-year-old spends about 4 hours on their phone. And I have to admit, my screen rules have gone out the window. My screen limits have gone out the window with this pandemic. So why not teachers start using the mediums that our students prefer and get them to engage in learning on their phones, which is where they are living most of their lives right now. So that kind of brings the presentation to an end. I could show you a little bit of Arist inside the hood if you would like. This is what the course kind of looks like. This is the data I get on the people who've signed up for the course. I can see all the users and have they done all 7 classes or all 7 texts, have they received them. I can view their responses by clicking here and seeing, okay, how many of them answered this question about people. It looks like most of them were able to identify Joseph McCarthy. I can look at analytics, which tell me that 98% of the people who started this course finished it. 33% of them answered all the questions, and 83% of them got the questions right. So I think that kind of brings me to the end. I'll open it up for questions if any of you have them. I will say that my MO with teaching technology to my students is that I'm not very good at technology, but I'll help support them the best I can. And I know all of these companies offer support. So if there's a question I can't answer, I say send an email to Arist, support at Arist. And I will say that more than half of my students were able to, 75% of them turned in a script, and more than half of them got their stuff loaded into Arist. The most common problem was I can't find the link to my course. so that you can publish it so that other students can take it. That was a little difficult for them to figure out, but for the vast majority, this was a big success. And my hope is that you'll consider maybe using some text message courses as an alternative to distance learning. So let me see if you're still out there, or if I've been talking into the void.
Hey, Scott, I actually have a question. So I'm intrigued by this a lot. A lot of my research and a lot of like my practice whenever I was in the classroom involved doing something very similar to what you were doing with text messages, except I use Twitter.
Oh,
And
nice.
I was wondering if you have, because I've ran into this issue myself. I'm wondering, have you ran into issues where students either don't have a cell phone, or have you ran into issues where the students may have a cell phone, but parents are not okay with using the technology in that way? And I didn't know if, do you give those students that aren't able to participate in the text messaging courses, do you give them some, like an alternative, or like what is your maybe solution for that if
Great,
you ran into that?
great question. So for this last project, I gave my students sort of a choice. Like, 90% of the points came from filling out the Google form and writing up the script, showing me that they know how to paraphrase and summarize historical content. That was the learning objective. And only 10%, which really was mostly extra credit, comes from if you manage to load it into the course and deliver a course. Just because I know my students aren't computer programmers, this might be difficult for them. And yeah, I am worried about that equity issue, that not all of them might have cell phones. I have found that, and when I polled my students, they all had cell phones and they're all using them. But be mindful that I live in Los Angeles and they're all in the suburbs of Los Angeles, where I would say smartphone penetration is much higher than it might be in rural areas or other places.
Well, and and I kind of ran into the same thing. A lot of my students, I used it primarily in eighth grade social studies, and all of my students had a smartphone, so I was kind of in the same uh, place that you were at. But the issue that I found out is that a couple of parents weren't okay with getting a text from their teacher, about school. They were just not comfortable with that.
Oh, so this reminds me. I should tell you that the Arist platform uses, it's totally FERPA compliant and all that, and it uses a lot of the technology like Remind uses, where the students sign up, but you never have their phone number. So it's like a third party platform where they know the kid's phone number, but you don't. So, and I did front load this by talking to my parents, or at least sending them an email about this project and getting them excited and buying in. And then I'll say one of the other things that's kind of built the culture on this was and I should also disclose that I'm at a public school, but it's a medical magnet, a medical themed magnet, and it's for gifted and talented students. So a lot of my problem is, how do I differentiate from these kids who really are totally obsessive and they're going to spend 60 hours on an individual project, and they're going to essentially come out with the knowledge of a person who's written a dissertation, versus the students who are just kind of tangentially engaged and just going through the motion to collect the points. But we have a lot of support from our parents, especially when we're trying something new like this, because a lot of the parents quickly recognize that this is the way corporate America is educating a lot of its staff. They're doing a lot of professional development and corporate training on the phones. There's actually a Forbes article that I'll send you on the platform itself, and a DuPont case study that they did when it came to training their employees. I want to jump over to Robert, who's asking for the link again. So let me go back to, that was buried in my lesson plan, which I give you guys just to kind of take a look at. And I will say that once you sign up for this platform, even though you're just signing up as a starter account or creator account, they're going to try and upsell you and talk you into becoming a corporate member and giving them lots of money. I just thought this was an unusual, innovative platform to engage students. And what I'd really like, and I've been pushing my district to do this, is let's contract with them and do an experiment and see, we know who the kids are who are failing. Let's see if we can re-engage them this way. So I've actually put in a grant with my district to do that. We're going to try